And now, well, Chinese Premier Li Qiang is urging G20 nations to stay united as the global economy slows. Speaking at the G20 summit in Johannesburg, he warned that rising protectionism and growing trade tensions are putting new pressure on global growth. Li called on members to defend free trade, strengthen multilateralism, and manage their differences through dialogue. He also pushed for reforms at the IMF, World Bank, and WTO, saying developing nations need a stronger voice. Li highlighted China's support for Africa, including an action plan for industrialization and new steps to ease debt burdens. Leaders at the summit echoed the call for solidarity, saying major economies must work together to drive inclusive and sustainable growth. Meanwhile, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni met with Chinese Premier Li Qiang on the sidelines of the G20 summit, where they reviewed the 2024-2027 plan, marking 55 years of bilateral ties, and discussed advancing balanced trade as well as scientific and cultural cooperation. All right, so viewers, we're telling you about the latest developments that are coming in. Now, of course, the G20 summit is currently on, and of course, the Chinese Premier Li Qiang is urging G20 nations to stay united as the global economy slows. So there are a few important topics that are being discussed at the G20 Summit 2025, which is taking place in South Africa. Now, speaking at the G20 summit in Johannesburg, he of course warned that rising protectionism and growing trade tensions are putting new pressure on global growth. So of course, now I do have my guest, Hidekazu Sakai, professor of Kansai Garai University, Japan, joining me from Osaka, Japan. Now, Mr. Sakai, we're of course talking about the Chinese Premier Li Qiang, who's urging G20 nations to stay united as the global economy slows. How do you see this?
Well, this is very important because I'm sure that China has been thinking about Trump, the tariff on a lot of countries in the world. But at the same time, this statement is kind of double-edged to me because China has been biggest exporter of rare earths. That is the very important material for today's high-tech industry. Therefore, China is kind of ruled itself by saying this. We all know that the last few months we have a serious issue that China has been politicized and export of rare earths to the world. And the United States and China had very, very tough negotiations. Then China is kind of lifting its the export limitation. This is very good for Japan as well, because as I touched on already, that China and Japan has been disputing over the Taiwan issue. But China cannot use this rare earths and export weapons to Japan anymore because China says we should maintain free trade in the world. Therefore, China's the very strong political weapon is actually banned by itself. Therefore, this is a very important message to the world that okay, if you say so, China, you should stay in free trade. That's very important to us.
Mr. Sakai, there's also a new development there, which is about the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni meeting with the Chinese Premier Li Qiang on the sideline of the G20 summit. And they've, of course, reviewed the 2024-2027 plan. So what would you like to say about that?
Well, as you know, that Italy has left One Belt, One Road initiative of China. So I believe China wanted to reconstruct its relationship with Italy, but I'm not quite sure it would be successful because Meloni does not see the China as a very trusted partner anymore. But at the same time, maybe Meloni can be very pragmatic, politician to somehow use the China for its own Italian economy's development.
Right, Mr. Sakai. Now, there's another question that I have for you, which is that Lee's called on members to defend free trade and strengthen multilateralism and manage their differences through dialogue, of course. Do you see that as something that will resolve issues?
Well, economic interest is the biggest interest for the China's the futures. It has been always, but it's still very important. In order to maintain its international status, China needs to stay in this multilateralism, and otherwise, the China's the futures for economy isn't very bright. Therefore, China knows that, and China has been, One Belt One Road initiative has been kind of questioned in many ways because of the possible debt trap, or maybe sort of the using the economic assistance as a weapon to sort of subjugate it, the recipient states. Therefore, China needs to maintain its economic sort of influence to the world. Therefore, China needs to stay in this kind of forum. Otherwise, China will lose the international audience to appeal that we are not like a Trump, or we are kind of defender of free trade. So this is quite political, the situation for China today.
Thank you, Mr. Sakai, for joining me on the broadcast. And now, well, China